What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The El Pearly Show. Today, we are going to be looking at the best smoke spots in Smash Ultimate. This is going to be a little bit of a longer video, so grab some popcorn, grab a drink, and grab your vice of choice as we explore the best smoke spots in Super Smash Bros. Just a reminder that if you guys enjoy my videos, you can check out my streams on YouTube or Twitch. You can buy some of my shitty Redbubble merch, or you can tip me directly on Ko-Fi to be featured in the credits of all upcoming and future videos. Sorry about the bit of housekeeping on these intros, but hey, let's just skip the middlemen, and instead of these YouTube sponsorships, I'll just ask you directly for money. Getting into the actual meat and potatoes of this episode, I decided I wasn't going to rank these in an actual list, and I was just going to go through them chronologically. Chronologically meaning ones introduced in 64 first, and going over ones that were introduced in Ultimate last. I think Ultimate just has too many stages to make a satisfying countdown. They have all these stages and they don't have the one that matters the most to me. RIP Pokefloats. I'll never forget you, Pokefloats. A couple of stages aside, Ultimate pretty much does have almost every map from the Smash Bros series, so this will probably be the only Smash Bros smoke spot video I make, unless I make one over Smash Remix, or P Plus Remix, or Subspace Emissary, or Multiversus. Oh shit, sorry, I forgot they killed that one. Too soon? I still can't believe Warner Brothers just old yellered Multiversus because it wasn't making enough money. Like, that shit is still crazy to me.
That's by sucking!
The first smoke spot in today's video is going to be Super Happy Tree from Smash 64. I feel like I don't need to elaborate too much on this stage's inclusion, but here we go. For starters, the name Super Happy Tree. Where better to consume my Super Happy Tree than on Super Happy Tree? I always felt Yoshi's story was a very stoner-coded game, between being about depression and swapping between being very fun and carefree and very fucking scary all of a sudden. Seriously, this is a kid's game. What the fuck is going on? What were they thinking?
What were they thinking?
Anyway, Super Happy Tree in Smash Bros. Is a pretty fun, relaxing stage. You can put your feet on the clouds while you put your head in the clouds. We are going to be playing this on hazards on though, which means that the clouds will disappear if you stand on them for a few seconds. We're going to be running all of the stages on this part of the list in hazards on mode, not only for simplicity's sake, but because I think it's the most fun version of most of these stages. As far as I'm concerned, there's only two stage modes, hazards on and mental illness. All jokes aside, I do love Super Happy Tree. I wish there was a playable version without clouds like in 64's story mode, but I guess that's too much to ask for a game that won't even bring back Pokefloats. That's right, I'm still upset about it. Hashtag justice for Pokefloats. On the topic of unplayable stages, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Meta Crystal, aka the Metal Mario stage. I think it's a total shame this map never shows up in the series again. This is the most fun that anyone has ever had in Hazy Maze Cave. Props to Smash Remix for doing this one justice and actually making it playable. I need to have a beer here. Moving on to a different stage, I don't think I can get away from 64 without talking about Hyrule Castle's box. Ayo. I don't think you could do a full hotbox on this little hut in Hyrule Castle, but it's, you know, we gotta bring it up. I still think it's worth a mention because of all the crazy shit that can happen on this side of the stage. Ultimate's box fights may be insane, but it's nothing compared to the shit that goes on in 64. That is actually gonna conclude our Smash 64 stages. I know we had like 3, but the game only has 9 total playable stages, so we're gonna be pretty strapped for choices anyways. Unless we really want to start scraping the bottom of the barrel and we start talking about Dragon King smoke spots. The first melee stage we've got today is On It. Did anyone not expect On It to be on here? I don't think anyone expected this list to not have On It. On It. Even if this map wasn't a total classic, the drugstore joke is right there. It basically writes itself. I feel pretty comfortable saying that On It is one of the most recognizable maps from Smash Bros, barring the elephant in the room that we will address later. I remember hating this stage as a kid, but as an adult, my taste has matured a little bit, and now I do enjoy committing felony robbery on these walk-offs. On It is a fun, happy, and sunny stage, and there's absolutely nothing that could go wrong here.
Ryan, look out!
Okay, so maybe I should mention that you will get run over by a car if you're on the bottom level, but honestly, I think it's pretty manageable because you can just sit up in the trees or stand on top of one of these houses. You want to be right next to the drugstore platform anyways. I mean, that's the best smoke spot here, if we're being honest. I've never played any of the Earthbound games, but if the vibes of the Earthbound games are anything like this stage, maybe I do really need to play them. Smoke spots in Earthbound series, maybe? Speaking of Earthbound, I very frequently forget that the next entry on our list is an Earthbound stage. Seriously, if you gave me one look at Fourside and then asked me to tell you what game series it was from, I think we would be here all fucking day before I guessed it. But yeah, Fourside, another great smoke spot. I think it looks amazing in every game it shows up in. I didn't really want to talk about FD or Omega versions because if we did, this video would be 2 hours long while I go over every FD and Omega version, but I find the alternate versions of Fourside to be one of the prettiest in the game, honestly. I really do. This is one of my favorite stages in the game to play on in tournament, if people will, allow me to gentlemen to Fourside. Should I make a tier list of what FD/Battlefield variants would be the best places to smoke on? That could be pretty fun. Let me know if you guys would be interested in seeing that. Even without an alternate version though, Fourside is a pretty great spot to smoke. There's really no bad spot to spark up here. I guess I would consider whether or not you consider the UFO to be the best spot to spark up or the worst spot to spark up. I would say it's the best, but hey, you do you. I do like how the stage looks in the melee version of this stage, where the lights look a lot brighter. It's very angry white lighting compared to the warm, almost orange lights of the ultimate version. It's a very minor difference, I'm sure, just based more off of like the engine they're using instead of a intentional art style difference to make the lights more orange. Maybe it was intentional, who knows, but I still like both versions of the stage for sure. That's pretty much all I have to say about Fourside. Amazing music on both this and on it, by the way. I'm gonna sort of lump our next two stages together because they are pretty similar in my opinion. Fountain of Dreams and Great Bay are two melee stages that offer a pretty serene spot to spark up in. I guess Great Bay is only relaxing if you ignore the moon plummeting to the earth before all the giants stop it, but hey, there is going to be a cost for smoking by the lakeside. There will be some weird shit going on at the lake. This is well known by people who live by lakes. I'm not going to sit here and ironically try and argue that Melee's version of Great Bay looks better than Ultimate, but I think if I had to pick one to smoke weed in, I may pick the Melee version just because it has that Y2K Frutiger Arrow water, and I need to swim in that at least once before I die. Whether or not the turtle joins me on my swim is irrelevant. I won't hide my bias here. I'm not huge on Great Bay. I mostly played 64 and Brawl growing up, so I didn't play a lot of this stage, but it was suggested way too many times by people in the stream, so I felt like I did need to include it. So shout out to the Great Bay fans for making their voices heard and letting it get a spot in this video, because otherwise it probably wouldn't have. Moving on to Fountain of Dreams and talking about the differences between the Melee and the Ultimate version, I think I like the colors on the Melee version a lot more, but I do think the lighting effects on Ultimate are cool, even if they do take away from the overall color balance of the whole stage. I think we could have done without the water physics and the reflections, considering it was the reason this stage wasn't able to be played on in tournament for 2 presidential terms. But hey, regardless of tournament legality, regardless of art style, regardless of any of that shit, I would still spark up on this stage 100% of the time. I'd have to be kind of careful though, because as we mentioned, the floor is reflective on Fountain of Dreams, and we all know the #1 rule of being too fucked up is not to look at your own reflection for too long, or your brain will start to do weird shit. So this would be one you might have to exercise a little bit of caution on Fountain of Dreams. I think the other funniest thing about Fountain of Dreams is that Fountain of Dreams' original appearance in Kirby's Adventure, it looks absolutely nothing like the Fountain of Dreams that shows up in Smash Bros. Later, but pretty much every appearance after Super Smash Bros. Melee, the Fountain of Dreams just looks like the Super Smash Bros. Version, so RIP to everyone who enjoyed the original design, I suppose. But yeah, getting back to the topic of the video, FOD, great place to smoke on. Might be a little scary to green out waking up on FOD and having no idea how you got there or how you're gonna get out of there. The next stage is one... Awful voice crack. The next stage is one that you absolutely could not leave out of a list like this. I'm comfortable calling this stage the Nuketown of Smash Bros. Of course, I'm referring to, what other map, but Hyrule Temple. Technically, the name of the map is just Temple, but I like referring to it by its full government name for whatever reason. I genuinely do think Temple is the most famous Smash Bros. Map. If anybody has any suggestions in the comments, I would love to hear them, but I do think we have to give it to Temple here. Temple has not missed an appearance in a Super Smash Bros. Game since it was introduced in Melee. Unless you count the 3DS version, but that doesn't count. That game couldn't handle Ice Climbers and it couldn't handle Hyrule Temple. The only stages that have had this many appearances in the Smash Bros. Series are Final Destination and Battlefield. And that doesn't really count because they kind of change appearance every single game, most of the time for the worse. But hey, we'll talk about FD and Battlefield later. We're talking about Hyrule Temple for now. Hyrule Temple is where shit went down back in the day. This is where beef was squashed. This is where boys became men. This is where some boys became girls. Wait, what? I think it's hard to really say what made everyone gravitate towards Hyrule Temple as the map back in the day. Some of you may need reminding that the internet wasn't really as mainstream as it was now, so we didn't have Super Smash Bros. Melee streamers and content creators to, tell us what maps to play on. I'm not trying to pretend the early 2000s were the fucking Stone Age and nobody had internet, but the internet and gaming culture really weren't married like they are today, especially with Nintendo and stuff. So gaming media did exist back then, but it just wasn't mainstream like it was today. But hey, somehow, regardless of all that, an entire generation of gamers decided Hyrule Temple was where shit went down, and there were a few corners of the stage where even more shit would go down on Hyrule Temple. I came up with a few reasons why I think Hyrule Temple was just the go-to map for a lot of people who grew up on these games, so I'll go through those really quick. The first reason being this stage is just really cool looking. It's got this abandoned castle motif going on, and there's really nothing linking it to the Zelda series besides maybe like a Triforce here or there. I think especially among melee stages is where Temple really stands out. While a lot of melee stages have a very vibrant and saturated color palette, Temple is decidedly less so. Many of Melee's other stages feel like a McDonald's playground when it comes to their visual identity, with primary colors and recognizable brands splattered across the screen with no sense of restraint. Hyrule Temple, on the other hand, feels empty and almost forgotten. Barring the music and maybe some visual cues, I think a lot of casual players won't even associate this level with Zelda. It's very devoid of brand identifiers. Melee has this really weird art style that I've best heard described as one of those FMV cutscenes stretched out into an entire playable game, and I think Hyrule is one of those places where it really applies. In fact, I think Hyrule Temple is one of the best examples of this, only really exemplified by the music and the overall lonely atmosphere that the map has going on. My second reason for this map taking off as much as it did is definitely going to be the music. This map has two songs that can play on it: the Temple theme and the Fire Emblem theme, and they are both fucking bangers. I think if you played any of them for a club full of 20-somethings, they would absolutely go apeshit. I think Temple Theme is one of the most iconic songs from Smash. I think by virtue of this map being in such heavy rotation, Temple Theme has become one of the most iconic songs in Smash Bros. The Fire Emblem theme is really good too. I just think it's really funny how they had you fight Roy for his unlock on the stage, and so I guess that's why the Fire Emblem theme plays on this stage. I think fighting Roy also probably made this place feel a little bit more mysterious because, let's be real, fucking nobody knew who Roy was whenever this game came out in the States. Like, literally, nobody did. Fire Emblem wasn't even a thing in America. Absolutely nobody had any idea who him or Marth were. So I'm sure more than one person fought Roy on this stage and was just very confused. This was their first exposure to Fire Emblem. At least one person, which is kind of funny to think about nowadays. They wanted to put Fire Emblem in the game so bad, but they didn't have time to make a stage, so they just make you fight Marth on FOD and they make you fight Roy on Temple. Third and final reason I think Temple blew up so much is just because it's a really fun stage to play on. I mean, that's probably the biggest reason if we're being honest. I think just going to the center stage and not dying until 300% is just a game mechanic that spreads through the word of mouth. Because that shit is fun. No matter the Smash game, going to the little fucking cave of life down here and bouncing off the walls at 800 million miles an hour, that shit is fun. It's one of the most fun maps you can play in Smash. I don't even think there's really any other spots that you could do this shit where you ping pong around the screen on Melee. Maybe like Poke Floats, but that's it, really. But no map can really compare to Temple, really. It has the best music, it has the best shenanigans. It has so many shenanigans. I've spent this entire time talking about the shenanigans of Temple and not even talking about the best spots to smoke on Temple. My top spots are gonna be the bucket spot on the bottom right part of the stage right here, the blast zone spots sort of to the left and the right of the stage. I'll put some editing up on screen so you guys know what I'm talking about. But yeah, these spots for sure, even though all of these spots are extremely dangerous. I think the bottom spot right here, you're begging to get bounced off the bottom of the stage. Both of these spots, you're right next to the blast zone. But hey, fuck it. You gotta live life on the edge. You gotta be a little bit dangerous to have some fun, you know. I think we're all smokers here. I don't think we're all averse to the concept of a little danger to have some fun. But yeah, the view on any of these spots would be crazy. It's not really talked about enough that Hyrule Temple is just up in the air. It's just floating. It's a floating island. Terraria moment. But even barring smoking on some of the more outer spots of the map, I think we all know it would be great to have a rotation in the fighting spot. You know, the little cave of life. The fight club, whatever you want to call it. We gotta spark up in this part of the map right here. need to have a blunt rotation here before I die. But I think I've been talking about Temple for just a little bit too long, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. That is gonna wrap up our stages that are introduced in Melee, so we are gonna move on to our Brawl smoke spots. 64 and Brawl were my most played Smash games growing up, so I'm gonna try not to show my bias here. I'm gonna go for a bit of a weird first pick here and pick the Brawl stage builder stages. I've always loved the way these stage builder stages look. I kind of have a huge amount of nostalgia for these because I rotted my brain with a ton of Brawl machinima growing up.
So, about a year and a half ago, there was this crazy dickhead called Vixen who wanted to like rule the world with turnips or something really gay like that. But because I'm so awesome, me, Princess Peach, saved the world!
Yoshikage Kira, that's how your life was ripped away from you. Funny how memory works!
But regardless of that fact, I always loved the awkwardly realistic, but kind of stylized, empty yet visually cluttered Brawl stage builder creations. I always thought they were strangely comforting. I know everyone made a stage like this at least once. We're not even gonna get into the total madness that is Brawl stage builder creator. With that being said, I don't really have a lot more to say about Brawl stage builder. I'm sure someone much smarter than me could probably make a 30-minute long video about the overall eeriness of the Smash Bros art style. Oh, hey, yeah, there you go. Good video, worth a watch, I would say. We're gonna give a quick honorable mention to the Brawl version of Final Destination as well. This version of Final Destination has always been my favorite, and the biggest reason is probably because I played this game a lot when my brain was still developing. I do think it's that simple. As far as actual reasons go, I think Brawl's Final Destination is one of the few times where Brawl's attempted realism actually worked in its favor. The realistically styled space and ocean sections of Brawl's FD still look great nearly 20 years later. Yes, I did say 20 years, Jesus fucking Christ. To be fair, I do think Ultimate's Final Destination looks fine, I guess. Something about Ultimate's Final Destination really just kills it for me, and I couldn't really tell you what. I think it's because it's not like Ultimate's Final Destination isn't doing cool shit. You head towards a galaxy of some sort, and then this matrixy cube thing cuts you off, teleports you, and then these tendrils come and open a wormhole, and then this thing blows up and brings you back to the beginning, which is cool, I guess. I think it's supposed to be a reference to World of Light having the story about light versus darkness, which is cool, I guess, but World of Light fucking sucks. Smash Ultimate's World of Light game mode has been banned by the Geneva Conventions under definition of torture because it's so breathtakingly boring that it has been compared to waterboarding. I just made that up, by the way, but seriously, this is the most fucking boring thing I've ever played in my life. Basically what I'm saying is, World of Light's mid-story does not justify FD being lame in this game. I think the issue with Ultimate's FD is that it's doing too much in a weird way. It doesn't feel as epic as the other games. I know the word epic has a really bad connotation these days, but just think about all the shit that I said Ultimate's FD does, and then now I'm going to tell you about what Brawl's FD does. You start out looking at a galaxy, presumably the Milky Way, not great wormhole effect appears, and then you see all these semi-realistic looking stars. We're headed towards some sort of light, maybe another galaxy, then we're in a wormhole, then we're looking at the ocean and going upside down and sideways, going all crazy and shit, and then the whole thing loops again. Again, I'm entirely willing to admit this is probably nostalgia speaking, but I just felt like Brawl's version just felt way more epic than Smash Ultimate's. I think Smash 4 had the right idea where you see the Earth and the Sun about to collide while you're flying around on FD fighting each other. I think my thing with Final Destination is I just want it to feel like the last 30 minutes of a DBZ movie. Everything other than that is negotiable. I just need to have a ton of shit flying around on screen, and I need to see planets exploding, alright? I think these old games just knew how to operate on the rule of cool, man. Even the FD on the 3DS looks pretty good. Wait, actually, that looks really good. Holy shit, dude, I didn't realize. Anyways, enough incessant yapping. I always wanted to smoke a blunt on the Brawl version of this stage, but Ultimate's version always felt lackluster to me. Tangent over. On a more sunny note, we're going to talk about Delfino Plaza next. This is another smoke spot that my chat suggested to the point where I felt like I kind of had to include it. I guess it does make sense because this stage is actually a tropical paradise, but I always associate this stage with walk-offs, sharking from underneath the platforms, and descending and ascending platforms of death. Smoking in Delfino Plaza and Super Mario Sunshine would be fun, but I don't think smoking in Delfino Plaza and Super Smash Bros. Ultimate would be that fun, if you get the idea. I suppose if you're an active smoker, if you like to puff one and then go on a run, this could be the stage for you, but I like to sit my ass down after I have a smoke, so not gonna be the place for me, or else I'll get left behind by that fucking platform and die. This little island part of the map might be fun though. Let me get my swimming trunks. Moving on from Delfino Plaza, we're gonna go to a stage that was technically introduced in Brawl as well, that being the online practice stage. I do actually prefer the ultimate version of this stage with its large, almost playground feel to a stage compared to Brawl's claustrophobic little stage with this yucky green gradient in the background. Given how functional Brawl's Online was, I'm sure a lot of people would be grateful to not see these 4 walls again for a very long amount of time. Smash 4 has these little whatever stages for your waiting room, but I think Ultimate's version of the stage is what we're really looking for here. For one, it's really hard to die in Ultimate's training stage unless you fall off the side here. The second reason to smoke on the training stage is time and place. You're probably waiting for a match anyways, so no better time than the present, right? Third, once you do successfully light that shit, you've got a whole lot of room to play around. You can press all your buttons and not give a fuck. Thankfully, Ultimate's Online is still pretty active to where you won't have to wait for a long time in this training room to find a match. But if you do find yourself having to wait a long time, I'd say there's not a lot of better spots to have a smoke. That will pretty much cover it as far as our Brawl smoke spots goes. I'm not gonna lie to you guys, we're not gonna have a lot of Smash 4 smoke spots either because most of them are either too horrifying to smoke on or there's just way too much movement going on. Like bro, we are not smoking on the gamer stage. That shit would be psychosis inducing. Smash 4 does have a few nice smoke spots though that we are gonna be getting into. My personal favorite being Great Cave Offensive. Listen, I can see the comments already dissing Great Cave Offensive. You all shut your mouth. In this house, the Great Cave Offensive is a hero.
And in this house,
Great Cave Offensive
is a hero. End of story.
Great Cave Offensive is a Kentucky classic and a worthy successor to Hyrule Temple. I will not argue about it. Argue with the wall. I fucking love Great Cave Offensive, honestly. Kirby Superstar Ultra is one of my favorite games ever, and I love playing on this map with my friends. I mean, what more can you ask for, really? There's a few different parts of this map I wouldn't mind sparking up at. I'm torn between the palaces on the left and the crystals on the right. This map is massive. This shit covers 3 different zip codes, so it's not like you've got a shortage of spots to choose from. The Smash 4 version and the Ultimate versions of this map are pretty much the same, probably because every map that came back from Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate, they didn't have to rebuild from the ground up like they did 64 and Melee, so they pretty much just look the same between Smash 4 and Ultimate. Our second Smash 4 smoke spot is going to be Spirit Train. Again, this is a stage that I don't really have any love for, but it came up a lot when we were discussing Smash Ultimate smoke spots, so I felt like I had to include it. Hold your pitchforks for this statement, but I've never actually played a Zelda game, much less a Wind Waker adjacent one, so this little bug-eyed freak driving the train really just doesn't tug on my heartstrings at all. I'm just gonna wonder where this motherfucker got his train certification while he was busy being a C tier. Besides all the Toon Link slander though, I guess this map isn't really an awful spot to smoke. I think smoking anywhere except the carriage would have your blunt looking like Travis Scott in that one music video, but hey, you know, you could make it work, so cheers to the Spirit Train enjoyers, I suppose. That is actually going to be it for our Smash 4 stages, barring a section that we will get into later. So for now, we're going to talk about the Ultimate newcomer stages. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, Ultimate has like 12 new stages at most, and they all kind of suck. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm fine. Most of the additions to Ultimate's stage roster are fine, I guess. That's pretty much all. Fine is pretty much the nicest thing you could say about them though. Not counting clone stages like Big Battlefield and Small Battlefield, Vanilla Ultimate only added 6 stages to the series roster, which again is fine, I guess. I know they were saving most of the budget for the characters, which I would have rather them done. I'm glad they did that, but not a great set of stages. Out of all the vanilla stages added, I'd say that Great Plateau Tower and New Donk City are probably the most important for our tastes, but they're just kind of fine. Again, like I said, they're just fine. Great view on Plateau Tower, pretty good gameplay as well, but New Donk City is just one of those moving stages that kind of blends in with every other moving stage that Smash does. If you're actually trying to smoke there, all the moving shit would be pretty obnoxious, I think. It would be great to hear Pauline sing live, but less great to be left to your death after the platform just fucking flies away from you. In true Ultimate spirit, I do think the DLC stages are way better than the vanilla stages, so we can go ahead and get into those, but I am going to be lumping them together because I do think they are pretty similar. Our Ultimate DLC spots are going to be
Yggdrasil's Altar,
Cloud Sea of Allrest, and Hollow Bastion. 3 cool looking stages that don't have a ton of dangerous shit going on, but still enough crazy shit happening in the background to make you want to sit back and spark up. Gun to my head, I cannot tell you anything about Dragon Quest, Xenoblade, or Kingdom Hearts, so I don't actually know what the fuck is happening on any of these stages, but I like the view, so we're gonna put them in the video. The Dragon Quest stage, I'm not pronouncing that, has you flying over the Dragon Quest world. Cloud Sea has you resting comfortably above the clouds, and Hollow Bastion, Yeah, I haven't played a single second of a Kingdom Hearts game, so I couldn't tell you what's going on here, but it looks cool. 3 great spots to green out. Our last spot on this list is going to be a little bit of a weird one. We're going to go to the controls test stage, aka that one stage you go on to beat up the sandbag as Mario whenever you're testing your controls when you're putting in a new tag. No better place to hit the Smash 64 themed booth cart than when your opponent is in the bathroom and you're testing out your controls. That is going to conclude our hazards on side of the list. I hope you all enjoyed those. They were curated and picked by the finest members of the Illuminati. As I mentioned earlier, we are going to move on to some stages that I thought were cool, iconic, worth mentioning, but overall they just have some like horrifying shit going on that would be terrible to play on. So, you know, we're gonna call this part of the list the hazards off part of the list. Even though some of them we're not gonna be playing with hazards off, we're just gonna be, you know, doing whatever. But, you know, I thought it would be interesting to have another part of the list as well. I guess it's kind of ironic to have the more dangerous part of the list be named hazards off, but oh well, who fucking cares? On the topic of stages that are just as dangerous with hazards turned off, Big Blue is going to be our first entrant on the list. I don't know if the hazards on or the hazards off version of the stage would be a better or worse spot to spark up on. Technically, you'd have more spots to spark up on the hazards on version, but I don't know if I would consider the hood of these race cars to be a great spot to spark up. You'll end up like that guy that was twerking on the hood of a Jeep that crashed into a Tesla. Yes, this is real. No, it's not the fruitiest thing to ever happen on the hood of a Jeep. If you prefer the hazards off version of this stage, you're just gonna have the Falcon Flyer and the Highway. Pretty cool smoke spot if you can ignore the awful wind on your blunt and the general highway chaos going on around you. Fun fact, this ship, the Falcon Flyer, has never appeared in any F-Zero game. The Falcon Flyer appears in the manual for F-Zero and some of the F-Zero comic books, but it's never showed up in a single F-Zero game. In fact, the Falcon Flyer's first video game appearance was in Melee. The Flyer shows up a ton in the story mode for Brawl too. Hell, one of the most iconic boss fights in that game takes place on top of the Falcon Flyer. The Falcon Flyer has had more appearances in Smash Bros. Games than there has been main console release F-Zero games. All of this just reinforces the fact to me that Captain Falcon is now a Smash Bros. Character and not an F-Zero character. It's kinda crazy to think about. Imagine the universe where Excite Bike Racer got the slot instead of Captain Falcon, and we have Wizrobe stomp kneeing people with the Travis Pastrana ult. Rainbow Cruise is gonna be next up on our hazards off set of stages. Hazards off, this place is an awesome spot to kick back and spark up. Hazards on, this place is a fucking nightmare. Despite Rainbow Cruise being one of the worst Super Mario 64 levels and one of the worst Super Smash Bros. Levels, I have always liked this map, at least visually. I'm glad that the Hazards Off version of the stage exists and just sticks to the beginning, winged pirate ship stage of the stage. The Hazards On default version has the ship going down, which is always fun to see someone go down with the ship, but then it gets to this shitty maze section. Nobody has ever had fun playing a stage that was built like this in Smash Brothers, except for Board the Platforms in 64, and that's because it was tailor-made to each character. In Rainbow Cruise, the maze portion of the stage is fucking annoying. It can be kind of fun to cheese people or, you know, make the blocks fall and then run away, but it's very short-lived and it's just not a sustainable amount of fun, so Rainbow Cruise kind of fucking sucks with the hazards on. If I'm playing hazards on, it probably means I'm playing in a pretty casual environment, and in that situation, Rainbow Cruise isn't even top 10 on the maps I would play. If I'm just playing Smash and having a beer, there are so many stages I go for before Rainbow Cruise hazards on. Great Cave Offensive, Pirate Ship, Temple, even Pokemon Stadium 1 with hazards on would be better than this here. But this is not a casual stage tier list, this is a smoke spots list, so I do think hazards off Rainbow Cruise would be a great spot to sit back and spark one up. I do think Pirate Ship is basically the same niche as Rainbow Cruise though, so kind of pick your poison here and there. Pokemon Pirate Ship and Pokemon Rainbow Cruise version. That being said, let's move on. Distant Planet is a pretty iconic stage as far as Smash goes, but I think having the Bulborb stare at you the whole time or having a flood wash you off screen would actually be pretty terrifying, so we are going to stick to the hazards off version of Distant Planet for now. I will say though, I think the Bulborb in the rain are kind of what makes the stage iconic, so yeah, like we can include Distant Planet on here and it'll be pretty relaxing to have a smoke there, but maybe too relaxing, honestly. It's kind of boring, even. Amazing music on this stage, though. Way better than the music on the hanenbow stage. Should've never smoked that shit! Now I'm in hanenbow! Talk about the worst places to smoke in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Does Hazards Off even affect anything in hanenbow? Has anyone even played on hanenbow in the past decade? What the fuck even is a hanenbow? Who let Sakurai just put this in the game? What is electroplankton even? Even after doing a good amount of research on electroplankton, I'm still unsure of what exact genre of video game to call it. Wikipedia just calls it an interactive music video game, which, yeah, I would say that is about as close as we're gonna get. We're just gonna roll with that. Electroplankton is truly one of the games of all time, and hanenbow is truly one of the stages of all time. Listen, I think most of the people who like hanenbow like the stage because of the obscure game pick and the creativity of the stage. I don't even think the most staunch hanenbow defender is gonna defend how this stage actually plays. Everybody's way too fucking far away from each other, the blast zones are confusing. Even after a decade of playing on this stage, I still feel like I should get put into a swimming state whenever I hit the water on this stage, but it never happens. It never happens, dude. It fucks with me every single time, dude. God, what were they thinking?
What were they thinking?
We're gonna do a lightning round of stages that are really cool, but unfortunately just way too dangerous to smoke on. Halberd, cool stage, great stage, especially if you're a Kirby fan. Lots of cool stuff does happen here in the Subspace Emissary, but unfortunately, the wind would eat your entire blunt if you smoked here. Plus, as soon as you land on the ship, it starts actively trying to kill you. So, a little bit scary, not really a very relaxing environment. So, hazards off, kind of a necessity here, but does make that version of the stage kind of a bit boring to play, unfortunately. Spear Pillar, similar to Halberd, very cool stage. Unfortunately, I do think fighting on the hazards on version of the stage would kill you pretty quickly. Dialga and Palkia both shoot off lasers and cause earthquakes like they're in an episode of Dragon Ball Z, so I would be pretty careful staying on the stage for any extended period of time. I think despite the really pretty surroundings here, if you try to smoke a blunt, you are probably going to get vaporized even if you stay on the bottom level. Hey, hotboxing the bottom part of Spear Pillar might just be worth it though. Similar to our last two entries, Shadow Moses Island, super iconic location. Unfortunately, there is a massive Metal Gear Solid Rex that rips open the wall, and that is pretty dangerous, kind of a vibe killer. You may want to throw Shadow Moses Island on hazards off or come back sober. Honestly, I think it would be more relaxing to smoke in Shadow Moses Island in Metal Gear Solid 1 than to smoke in Shadow Moses Island in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. Just make sure to watch out for your health bar if you do decide to do that. Pilot Wings and Woohoo Island are both stages that are pretty great in concept, but would be absolutely terrifying to experience in real life. Yeah, Woohoo Island does have the perfect shade of water, making you feel like you're in a Y2K Frutiger Arrow edit, but is all that really worth all this zipping around when you're just trying to relax and have a nice vacation? God damn! Not to mention, Pilot Wings in real life would be some absolute crazy James Bond, Tom Cruise type shit. One wrong jump and the whole stage looks like a Far Cry mission gone wrong. Spiral Mountain, great stage. I love Banjo-Kazooie, would love to smoke here. Unfortunately, when they were developing this stage, they were not aware of the concept of motion sickness. So, I would probably throw up if I smoked here. So, moving on. Smoking in your living room? Well, now with hazards off, you can. Living room is a stage that goes from Jesus fucking Christ with hazards on to, oh, this is actually really nice with hazards off. It's a summer day in your living room with the door open and puppies and kitties everywhere. Pretty much a stoner's paradise. The only thing that makes the hazards on version of the stage so fucking terrifying is the Tetris blocks that come down from the top of the screen and crush you. Can you imagine being an inch tall and seeing your entire life flash before your eyes before you get crushed by a Lincoln log? Truly an awful fate. Come to think of it, if you were that small, wouldn't the puppies and the kitties in the background basically be like massive beasts? I think those would actually probably be pretty terrifying too. You'd probably get chewed on or played with to death. Maybe this is a nightmare smoke spot even with hazards off. Jesus fucking Christ. On the topic of nightmare smoke spots, we are gonna end the list with Flat Zone X. Flat Zone X would be pretty fucking terrifying. Jesus Christ! I'm trapped in a Game & Watch console. Why am I flat? How long until the degradation on these old consoles starts to kick in? I think I've still got like a few years left. Right, you guys?